we spoke about the fire plants, and we had totally 12 fire plants designed up till today. Then we switched over to what is known as the Niti Aayog. Now, if you look at the objectives of the 12 fire plants, since we started off at zero, the importance was given to economic development, the economic sustenance of the country, the industrial development of the country, establishments of universities, establishment of higher institutes of learning, establishment of steel plants, development of remote areas, what we call backward areas, where institutions have not been there existing for millenniums. And these were the villages and the interiors of India where we had no idea what the economic situation was. India is a land of villages. I think even today we have about 600,000 villages existing in India. What was required was putting all these together and taking India forward. If you look at it, the question of when we come to the integration of all these thought processes, we cannot imagine from this perspective where we are talking from the 22nd century. At that time, there were no computers, there were no laptops, there were no CD drives, there was nothing. Everything. Even today, we have places where Indian postmen go by cycle or by boat to deliver the money orders which are being given by their families. So imagine 50, 75 years ago when we started, it was nothing. So people did not know where the villages were, how they could be accessed, what were the facilities, what type of people lived there, what were the languages, what was the culture. Though there was a common culture known as the Indic culture, which is basically, I would say, the Hindu culture, which was established, we can say more than 25,000, 30,000 years ago. Everything was unknown. For example, if you go to a village even today, in the remote areas of UP or in Rajasthan or in Bihar, they are feudal, they are ruled by nearly what you call the zamindars of the past. So, putting into perspective, one should understand the difficulties when we look at the economic development of India, how it took shape. And that is where I give credit to the government and mainly the IAS. They had used all their efforts. The IAS knew every nook and corner. Most of these officers went to the remote parts of the Bihar and Rajasthan and Jharkhand, as you call the Jharkhand today, the Bihar of the old, Calcutta, West Bengal. The situation. People could not access. People had no roads. They had no bridges. Everything has to go, we had to travel through boats. And the boats, rickety boats, we did not know when the boatman was there or not. There was no lighting. Everything was using kerosene lamps. There were no even batteries available for us to use torches. The limited resources through which India put through together to reach such heights, I think the world should appreciate that. We as Indians should appreciate it. We have not appreciated the efforts the government has put in. All these years, the government, 75 years, the government has put in. How much? Unless we go through this thinking process, the perspective will not be available to us. Unless we get the perspective how to establish an IIT in a remote place like Kharagpur. Now, Kharagpur, nobody imagined there could have been an IIT there because nobody has heard of that place. Then we set up an IIT in Powai. Powai was an unknown place in Maharashtra at that time. Now, let us not talk about today's Powai. We are talking about a Powai of the past where 75 years ago, we don't know how they even went there to establish such an institution. Construction, development, how did they transport the material? How did they get the cement, steel, the labor? How did they coordinate setting up such an institution? Have we ever thought it as Indians? We thought about the US, we talk about Britain, we talk about the established industrial nations. But shouldn't we as Indians look at it perspectively and look at it, look here, we had nothing. And these people put together and gave us institutions like the IITs. They gave us Bhilai. Who has heard of Bhilai? Bhilai was a remote town, it is actually a village. Rourkela, Bhilai, steel plants were set up. When we set up the first, I would say, a big industry, the Bharat Heavy Electricals in Thiruvarambur in Trichy, nobody could ascertain where you set up the institute. And at that time, Kamaraj, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, understood what is required and targeted a place, and today we have the beautiful BHEL township in Thiruvarambur near Trichy. The same thing with Bhilai, Rourkela. Except for Jamshedpur, which was started by the Tatas, there was nothing there in those remote places. And today, and Rourkela, if you look at Rourkela, it was a remote place, most inaccessible place. Bhilai, Rourkela, the etc. And today you can imagine SAIL, which was the apex body which was formed to take care of all these steel mills that had been set up. We imagine SAIL to be competitive today to the international steel manufacturers. Yes, how did it happen? It did not happen over one day. It did not happen over 1 week. How did they set up a steel plant in Rourkela without resources, without foreign exchange, without their money available to them in plenty? How did they do it? That is the human factor, the terrible hardships which our forefathers had gone through to establish such institutions. I think that is time that Indians, we wake up to the reality and do not compare ourselves to what China has achieved or what other countries have achieved. When we look at how we have achieved it, let us be proud of our achievements. Let us look at it as we proceed, how we have developed the institutions each one by one, the scientific institutions we have established over a period of time, the engineering colleges, the colleges of higher learning, in places which were not accessible, which was not reachable, which were not even known to people. How did they establish the, how did they set up the clinics in the remote places? They had to establish Mohalla clinics, as you call them today, the medical resources to reach those places. Suppose imagine setting up a hospital, or I would say a plant in a steel plant in Durgapur, and without access to medical facilities, water facilities, electricity facilities, roads, no infrastructure, no drainage, no gas supply. How did they live there? In cooking through chulas, the delivery, the roads, there were no roads, practically no roads. And how did they deliver all that? I think, that is a history by itself we should look at. History should be written, including this economic development of India, by which we understand that how did they transport the cement, the steel, the sand, the good water required, the mixers, the laborers, the masons, the engineers. How did they all do this? I think that is the history by itself. We learn about the British history, we learn about American history, how they went through the panhandle states and how they went through all the drought. India, let us look at it from Indian perspective. Let us rewrite history and link with our economic development, and then we'll understand a better history of India. How did it happen? And that is how we should look at it. And Indians as such should be proud about the fact that we have done something so great. And that kind of history should be delved into, and a separate chapter of historical economic development of India should be brought into the fore. I think we can take it forward in future, and we'll discuss it further as we go forward. Thank you very much.